What is good, you guys? Welcome back to my channel. This is the second time I'm recording this because the audio just died halfway through. I guess the mic died, but it's not going to stop me. I'm determined to bring you this message today because I have a success story that I really want to break down to you guys. And it's basically encompassing everything that we've been talking about in the last few videos. But today's video is going to be on detaching from specific outcomes to manifest fast. And this was one of those keys in the video, a previous video that I just did that talked about how people who manifest fast, they may have in scenes visualizations, they use techniques, but they are not so focused on them actually unfolding in that exact way and putting all these filters and conditions and all these things that they would like to happen before they could decide that they're the source, or before they could accept their desires. And I really want to talk about this because everything that you want is done because creation is finished. And most of the times, it's done better and greater than you can picture because most of the times we're picturing from a limited perspective when we're actually infinite. And like I said on my last video, the reason why I speak about recognizing your internal world is the true reality is because we take the 3D at face value, and the 3D itself is a form, and forms have no meaning outside of the meaning that we give them. But we are looking for a form to appear in order for us to decide that yes, I can finally be the person who has once this happens or that happens and all these things. But it's really important to disidentify with the forms because the forms come from you, but they can't be who you are. They're just an expression of who you are. So, visualizing, affirming in scenes, when we have a specific picture in our mind or a specific affirmation that we really want to come true, such as our SP is saying exactly this, you want to hear exactly the thing that you want to hear, all these things. When we have a picture in our mind that looks one way, for example, people that want to reconcile with their SP and they have a visualization, and it will be something that has more conditions or an expectation attached to it. So this could be, I've heard people say they want to manifest seeing their SP or getting into contact with them again, but only after they've lost the weight. They're seeing it as if they've finally lost the weight and they did all these things. Or the end scene is years later after they've gone to college and when their life gets better, when circumstances have changed and all these things. Like you're seeing it, but you're wanting it to be a certain way. And for money, I heard somebody said, well, I need 30K and then I'll get me my car, my home, and then I'll travel and then I'll finally be who I want to be. It's like you have all these things in a way, or you're so stuck on it looking a certain way when it manifests that you're so attached to the 3D and the form. And that's why you're out here watching and looking at the 3D, needing it to be a certain way, needing for things to look a certain way before you decide that you're the source. So you are actually assuming that the 3D is the source and that you are moving based off of what the 3D does. But remember, it comes from you, and the forms have no power outside of the power that you give it. So it's important that you disidentify with the outcome of how it's going to manifest, how it's going to look, and just forms in general, because you are that unchanging. You are the unchanging. You, as I am awareness, you are that unchanging. You, but forms, thoughts, emotions, they are changing. These are things that change. These are things that move and shift and change. So they can't necessarily be you. They are just experiences of that awareness. So this is coming from when I get there, then I'll receive it. Then I'll receive my manifestation. Then I'll know I'm source. If this moves around, then I know that I'm source. And it's all coming from that old identity and thinking that when this happens, then I'll have it, then I can be, and thinking the 3D needs to be perfect or some sort of way before you can be source. This only occurs when you're thinking from that separate self. And I want you to ask yourself, who's the one that's trying to get there? Who's the one that's trying to change things around? And it's the one that feels that they're separate. It's the one that feels that they're not. So think about it. You're manifesting from inside of a story, inside of an illusion. as that separate self that thinks it needs to get somewhere, that it's the doer. So I want to share the success story with you guys. And this comes from someone over on our Discord community. If you haven't joined us over there on Discord, make sure you do. It's a wonderful community. So this story was so beautiful. And she said that I had something manifest last week in a way that I didn't understand, but it reminded me of one of Autumn's recent videos where she says, we don't always know what we are really asking for. I reconciled with a friend with whom I hadn't talked with in a long time due to a fault of my own, and I had been seeing her congratulating me on my new life whenever I thought of her. I ended up spontaneously going to an event, and there I learned that my friend was helping at that event. I said hello, and I could tell she was upset, and my first instinct was to run, but something urged me to at least say bye to her after the event. Long story short, we ended up walking to the station together, and at some point I felt compelled to tell her why I hadn't reached out to her in so long. She then dragged me into the nearest bar. We hugged and laughed, and now we are back to where we left off at. Now, listen to this part, you guys. When I saw her at first, I was upset because I thought I'd see her after everything in my life had changed. But now, having been constantly texting with her for the past few days, I realized what I really wanted was to be talking to her, to have someone in my life who's like me to go to events with. I had been thinking on the lack of friends I had to do stuff with, and I got what I wanted, but in the form of reconciling with my friend. Although I was upset at first, the whole thing just seemed to flow, and I know there's no other way the day could have gone differently. And I love this so much, you guys. Now, think about this. Her end scene. Her end scene was she was hearing her friend congratulate her on her new life. So she thought that she would see her friend after everything in her life was fixed and better. But the whole time, she was upset for not having friends to do stuff with. But behind that, I want you guys to see, what did her end scene imply about her? What did the end scene actually imply? Not the story itself and not the unfolding that she preferred, but what did it imply about her? It implied that there was no separation between her and her friend, and that she was experiencing the state of oneness, of God, of love, of fulfillment, that there was only love that she really wanted. She wanted to express I am. So in the present moment, she was compelled to go to the event. She saw her friend. She was compelled to say all the right things. And although she felt resistance, she allowed that higher power, that source, to move through her and unfold and give her her desires. So it wasn't about the contents of the end scene and the story, but it was to experience the desired state of being. And how it unfolds is not, your way to figure it out. It's not how, you're not supposed to figure out the how. So, Autumn, what are you really saying? And I'm saying the one who's upset is the one that has the conditions, is the one manifesting from the old story. But when you're present and you allow it to unfold through you, she got the nudge that she wanted to go on her event, and it unfolded and she got what she wanted. But the one who's upset was the one that's manifesting, thinking it was separate and thinking that all these conditions needed to be met before she could decide that she was the source. But she was already the source in her life. So I am just knows that it is, you guys. You just are. So again, when she got into the present moment and allowed her unfolding really revealed itself, the manifestation that she wanted revealed itself. And so visualizations and being attached to specific outcomes and end scenes, the end scenes themselves are not to be taken as this literal thing that you want to happen, but it's to experience the desired state. So again, it's not to determine the exact how, because you don't know all the pieces that need to be moved. It's a picture that you form as the operant power to express your new state of being or your now state. And once you catch the mood, like Neville says, once you catch the mood of what it's like to know or to feel like the one who has, or to experience it, then you detach from the specific outcome and let that higher intelligence do it. Because remember, this one who's thinking from this lower perspective, will not see, can't really see, can't figure out the how, because they're figuring out with the contents and with the beliefs that they have. But when you're the source, you live in all experiences and all is happening right now, and it's all happening in the present. So it's not that things need to happen or unfold before. That keeps you locked into an illusion or an old story. Or even when you're thinking that the end scene needs to be an exact way, that keeps you locked into form, to thinking that the forms have power to move you and thinking that things need to be one way. But you are the source and everything is happening now. So again, the stories tell the experience of the state of being that you're in. And what she wanted was love. She wanted peace. She wanted her friend. She wanted oneness. She wanted to be one. And so that's what happened. It unfolded in the present moment, and she allowed. It didn't unfold from what she thought. And so that's why you should not be holding on to the expectation of my end scene needs to happen this way, and all these things, these little things need to happen before I get my manifestation. Because sometimes what we think for ourselves, you guys, because sometimes we think limited, it's the floor, just like Bashar says. But the higher self, it's infinite. It's can unfold so much greater than what you could perceive for yourself, especially when you're thinking as the separate self. But you are whole and complete. And so when you think from oneness, you're not thinking that I have to figure out all these things. And once my life gets better, then, I can reconcile. No, you are whole now. And you are at peace now. And there was never any separation between them. And so that's why they reconciled. And it didn't unfold in the way that she wanted to, but it was perfect anyway. And I want you guys to understand that when you're so attached to a specific way, that's what keeps you locked in and looking outside of yourself instead of imagining to experience the state of being, not imagining to have it go a specific way or to have it unfold that exact way. That's what's in your way, is thinking that it has to unfold that way just because you saw it that way. And yes, that one reality is a possibility that exists. But when you aren't holding and clinging and grabbing on to people and things and forms, you give way for the greatest expression to come in, or it to unfold in the most miraculous way. That's why when you're thinking lightheartedly and when you manifest those things where you're like, oh, that'll be great. I want a cookie, or I want something like simple. And when you're manifesting something simple, when you're like, oh, I want a coffee, or I want to manifest something like simple, you don't put any conditions to it. You're just like, I'm just going to have it. But when you're thinking like, oh, I'm going to have this, but then I'm thinking from the state of I don't have, okay, this needs to be moved, that debt needs to be cleared, and all these things need to be cleared out the way before I get my manifestation. And it's no, what is the state of being? What state of being would you be in if it was already possible? And it's not about necessarily the story, but it's to experience what it's like being that, having that, energetically embodying that. Okay, so when it unfolds, don't be so attached to the how. You're only imagining to get yourself to catch the mood, like Neville says. All right. So I want you guys to understand this. And Neville has a story too, a quick little story about how he manifested being married to his second wife. He wanted to get married to his second wife, but he was not divorced from his first wife. And his first wife wouldn't give him the divorce. And he was playing into the 3D at that time, looking like, okay, this needs to move. She needs to divorce me, and I need these things to happen. She wasn't budging in that story. But once he moved to fulfillment and was seeing himself being married to his new wife and having that life and being fulfilled, thinking from fulfillment, a series of events, the unfolding that got him the divorce was his ex-wife ended up stealing something, and he had to go clear her name. And once he cleared her name, she said, you know what, you're a good man, I will grant you the divorce. So he couldn't know the how, because him asking her was like no, she wasn't giving him the divorce. But once he moved to fulfillment and imagined just to experience, he couldn't have pictured that unfolding of how she was going to divorce him, you guys. So remember, it's not about how the story unfolds, but it's about your state of being. And when you imagine, you're not attaching yourself to the thoughts or forms, you're attaching yourself through the state of being. And the stories just tell the story of the life of that person. I really want you guys to get it, okay? So it's all about you, your state of being, where you're residing within yourself, all right? So I'm going to leave this video here. I hope that this helps someone, and I love you guys so, so, so much. If you would like a session with me by phone or email, I enjoy talking to you guys. I love this so, so much. Remember, you'll find the link in the description box below to book your session. And remember, you guys, imagination is on your side, and I am too. Bye.